This is a dancer and founder of Babel Movement, Sarah Leñador. So,
Hello, Hsing-ay. How are you?
one of the things that in our last conversation you were mentioning was micro expressions. For 4 weeks was in hospital rooms with my mom, and then this week have been in rehab with her. And so the idea of having your expression be so limited, it's very much been on my mind. Um, can you demonstrate maybe some of the micro expressions in dance?
Yeah, a very simple micro expression that may happen is raising your shoulders. Where even if you do this for long enough, you might start feeling like a little insecure, a little nervous. Versus if you like sat up nice and tall with your chest out, then you're taking up more space. And in that way, you can feel more confident. And then there's even micro expression with hands and facial expressions, where even a simple like raising your eyebrows or tilting your head a little bit, to be like, I'm not so sure about that. There's a lot of ways to do that. And often we think of our shoulders up with micro expressions, but it's exciting to see what we can do with the rest of our bodies, especially through dance. So just a brief moment in time where you get a glimpse of essentially the human behind the movement.
Yeah, yeah. It's interesting, during the pandemic with all the zooming that we're doing, I feel like we're becoming more aware of the micro expressions
Mm-hmm.
that we're sending out. Right? Like sometimes I think that I'm being really happy and I look into the computer, I'm like, oh, I don't look happy at all. When you choreograph, you're thinking on a lot of different levels, right? So like the big scale of like huge movements where you're in the room, but then you're also thinking about these micro things. So like, can you talk to us about like the approach, how you zoom in and out and what comes first?
That is an excellent question, and it depends on the project. If I'm doing something more character based, meaning like there's a specific story and there's a person, then I might start a little bit more micro, as in how would this person walk? Does this person stand up tall? Do they slouch a bit? Do they walk fast or slow? Are they usually looking down? Are they always looking up? So in that level is sort of like a medium place, and then I usually from there go to the biggest, like, okay, now if I'm choreographing as this person and taking up all the space doing these big movements, even if this person tends to be a smaller person, how do I choreograph something bigger then? But then after I have this like general outline, I love essentially coloring it in. So then I go into the deeper, minute details of how do they breathe? So I can be doing all this big movement, and am I holding my breath the whole time? Or am I breathing really loudly? Because breath it's part of all of us. And so if I'm breathing really fast, I might seem more nervous versus if I'm breathing more freely. And so I start adding in those details, or the details of, am I aware of my movements? Am I aware of the audience? And so that awareness of all these little things come in. But I sort of start with a baseline of like, okay, how would they move if they weren't a dancer? Just in normal everyday life. Okay, now adding the dance aspect, and then really filling in the details there. Is what I like to do. If I'm doing something less character based, I might start with the big choreography and then start exploring, since it's not based off of a specific person or idea, start exploring the movements a little differently. Like how do the dynamics of the movement change when I add these different variables of breath and micro expression.
And the idea of entanglement in the hospital bed where there's so many tubes
Yeah.
um, in so many body parts, it's insane. I mean, it doesn't feel like reality at all. Um, but the idea of trying to find movement, I mean, anytime she moved, all the cords would get entangled physically, real organic body parts and plastic everything. I keep thinking, oh my goodness, the idea of what if you can step out of that mess of tubes and move. I mean,
Right.
that's like the ultimate freedom.